Empress Valisa's crest flared subtly as she rose from the obsidian throne, her voice cutting through the Imperial Council's murmur like a vibroblade through silk. The mandate stands. Humanity's provisional alliance is sealed by necessity, not choice. Border resources secured or our flanks bleed dry under Krellith raids. Her 6 limbs unfolded with deliberate grace, the iridescent scales of her mid-torso catching the chamber's lumen globes as counselors shifted in their alcoves, antennae twitching with unease. Chief Minister Arctos leaned forward from his elevated dais, his multifaceted eyes narrowing to slits. Sovereign, this haste invites peril. The treaty's envoy exchange binds us to primitives whose worlds spin in barbaric isolation. Succession law demands purity of lineage. How shall we justify diluting it with soft-skinned mammals? Valisa's mandibles clicked once, a warning rasp that silenced the chamber's undercurrent. She had anticipated this. Arctos's faction had whispered against the alliance since the border skirmishes escalated, their legalists clutching ancient edicts like shields. Yet the scans were irrefutable. Humanity's anomalous resource hauls from contested nebulae could refuel her fleets for another cycle. Judy overwrote disdain. Justify? My hereditary authority is the edict, Minister. The human envoy arrives within the hour. Protocol remains unbroken. No concessions to their customs. The council assented in a ripple of bowed crests, though Arctos's remained rigid, his claws tapping a subtle descent rhythm on his podium. Balisa descended the throne dais, her primary arms gesturing to the chamber's vaulted arches where holoscreens flickered with incoming shuttle signatures. She felt the weight of their stares, the fragile lattice of her rule pressing inward. One misstep, and Arctos's traditionalists would fracture the Imperium further. The grand atrium's chime pulses announced the delegation before the airlock hissed open. Valisa stood at the nexus, flanked by her honor guard, their plasma lances humming faintly, and a phalanx of protocol aides. The human shuttle's ramp extended with a mechanical whine alien to Zarissian elegance, and out stepped a single figure, Rowan Hale, clad in a utilitarian uniform of matte gray, no adornment save a data slate and a sidearm holstered low. He approached without flourish, his bipedal gait steady on the polished floors, eyes scanning the atrium's geometries with what Valisaya perceived as bland curiosity. No prostration, no offered pheromones of fealty. Her crest itched with irritation. Humans lacked even the basic dorsal frills for proper signaling. Hale halted at the prescribed 10-pace mark, raising the data slate. Empress Valisa, I present credentials as military attaché under Treaty Directive 47, Alpha. Rowan Hale, dispatched to advise on border stabilization. His voice, translated flawlessly through his collar implant, carried a neutral timbre, as if addressing a peer rather than a sovereign whose lineage traced to the Starforge Wars. The lead protocol aide extended a deference tray, scented oils and a ceremonial blade for symbolic submission. Hale glanced at it, then shook his head once, firmly. Appreciated, but unnecessary. I'm here for the work, not the theater. A murmur rippled through the aides. Balisa's secondary eyes caught Arctos hovering at the chamber's edge, his mandibles parting in outrage. Decline the tray? Such gestures were rote, etched in millennium-old accords. This human presumed equality from the threshold. Attaché Hale, Balisa intoned, her voice a regal cascade. Your presence fulfills the mandate. You will observe truce observances. No weapons drawn within the palace lattice, no unsanctioned data queries. She gestured to a hovering drone, its scanners already mapping his biometrics. Internally contempt coiled. Humans, with their short lifespans and pack tribalism, advising an empire. Yet stability demanded this farce. Arctos swept forward then, his robes whispering like dry leaves, crest fully flared in challenge. Sovereign, this is no mere observance. It's erosion. Succession. Codex Article 19 prohibits alien counsel in strategic vaults. What competence does this mammal possess? Their worlds teem with internal wars. Their biology rejects neural links. To grant access risks cultural contamination, legal nullification of your throne. Counselors nodded, their antennae sinking into scent waves. Balisa felt the political lattice tighten. Arctos's faction held the legal archives keys, and one leaked precedent could unravel her rule amid the Krellith threats. But refusal invited resource starvation. Invasion. Her primary clause flexed. Opposition noted, Minister. Yet the Imperium endures by adaptation, not atrophy. Attaché Hale's role is provisional, ceremonial, as stipulated. Hale stood unmoved, his posture relaxed yet alert, as if Arctos's barbs were mere echoes. Valisa studied him. No flush of anger, no servile dip, just patient regard, like a strategist weighing a board. Arctos pressed, voice rising in formal cadence.
Ceremonial? He spurns our tray.
This hazards the bloodline, future heirs tainted by association. The people murmur already. Polls show 62% favor isolation. Enough! Valisa's command lashed out, her full crest blooming to dominance height, silencing the chamber. Private contempt burned. Humans were anomalies, their ships crude, their alliances fickle. But duty anchored her. Truce observances proceed. Stability first. She turned to Hale, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. A test, then. Small, deniable. Attache, to verify your mandate's intent, you are granted limited access to the Auxiliary War Archives. Review border incursion logs. Report findings by cycle's end. Escorts will monitor. Arctos recoiled, his eyes widening in segmented shock. The archives contain public domain summaries. Valisa cut in, her tone brooking no fracture. If the human proves inept, the concession costs nothing. If competent, she let the implication hang. A political barb for Arctos's faction. Unsettling, yes. The conservatives' crests wilted visibly, but it bought time, tested the treaty's worth without yielding core vaults. Hale inclined his head, not a bow, but acknowledgement. Understood, Empress. I'll need interface protocols for your systems. Human neuralware doesn't sync natively. The aides exchanged glances. Valisa's crest twitched at the casual admission of limitation. Yet there was no complaint, no demand for accommodations, just practical query. Protocol drone will calibrate. She replied, signaling one forward. As it hummed toward him, she watched Hale interface a portable linker, his fingers dancing across controls with multitasking fluidity. Scanning the drone's emissions, cross-referencing his slate, and logging environmental data simultaneously. Her secondary vision caught it. Humans juggled like that. Zorician sequenced tasks rigidly, neural links aiding but not replacing focus. Arctos lingered, claws scraping stone. This sets precedent, Sovereign. Mark it. Precedent is earned, Minister, Valisa said, her voice steady as she led the procession toward the archive wing. Duty overwrote disdain, but curiosity flickered unbidden. Jonas studied Bysant. Hale walked beside her escort, unhurried, asking precise questions about Krelith swarm patterns, questions that pierced rote reports, connecting nebulae currents to raid timings in ways her analysts had glossed. In the archive antechamber, crystal vaults hummed to life under her biometric seal. Hale settled at a terminal, the drone linking seamlessly after a single adjustment. Balasea observed from the overlook, Arctos at her side like a shadow. Minutes stretched. The human's eyes flicked across holos, not glazing as lesser aides did, but patterning, linking a minor ion trail anomaly to a forgotten supply depot. Initial note, Hale said aloud, voice even. Raids cluster post-nebula flares. Humans call it pattern recognition. Your logs flag it, but don't extrapolate to faint vectors. Arctos snorted. Extrapolate? Arrogant. Valisa silenced him with a glance. The human worked on. No fatigue in his frame after hours that would tax a Zorician's secondary metabolism. Endurance, unremarked. Her crest eased fractionally. Contempt cracked. Just a hair. This one hid depths. Or delusions. Either way, the test proceeded. As cycle's end neared, Hale straightened, slate updated. Provisional analysis. Redirect patrols to these vectors. Gains 18% efficiency. He transmitted it without fanfare. Valisa reviewed the projection. Logical, novel, blending their sensor data with something intuitive. Arctos's mandibles ground audibly. Coincidence? Results will tell, she said, strength unyielding. The alliance teetered, but in Hale's quiet competence, she glimpsed stability's edge. Duty held. Disdain began to fracture. Chief Minister Arctos rose from his council seat, his iridescent scales flaring under the chamber's vaulted lumens, voice slicing through the murmurs like a ritual blade. Empress Valisa, the Codex Interdictum stands eternal. No interspecies union shall bind the throne, lest it dilute the sacred lineage. This human envoy's deeper integration demands a formal waiver, sealed by the full conclave before any joint command proceeds. Valisa's crest ridge tightened, the weight of ancestral eyes pressing from holographic friezes along the walls. Arctos's faction leaned forward, their tail spurs tapping in synchronized descent, a calculated rhythm to erode her resolve. Rowan Hale stood motionless at her flank, his human frame unyielding amid the alien sprawl, eyes scanning the projected codex scrolls with that infuriating calm. She had just affirmed the trials ahead. Now this archaic chain rattled anew. "Precedent binds us all, your radiance," Arctos pressed, gesturing to the flickering edict. Without waver, Hale's strategies remained advisory shadows, unfit for operational seals. The invasion fleets encroach. We cannot risk illegitimacy. Murmurs swelled. Valisaw's mandibles clicked once, suppressing the urge to shatter the chamber's hush with rebuke. Public fracture would embolden them. Instead, she turned her gaze to Hale, the human's fingers already tracing subtext in the ancient script, lines her scribes recited by rote. Yet he dissected like fresh prey. Hale inclined his head, voice steady, laced with deference that masked steel.
"Chief Minister, if I may, the interdictum prohibits unions of throne-binding intent."
But Article 17 allows provisional pacts for existential defense ratified by amendment rather than full waiver. A narrow clause. Joint operations as tactical adjuncts, not lineage merges. I can draft it now, preserving the Codex's face while unlocking the seals. Arctos's vents flared, a hiss escaping. "Human presumption. You presume to rewrite our law?" "Not rewrite," Hale replied, projecting a crisp amendment from his wrist node onto the central hololith. Words bloomed in flawless Zarasan script, cross-reference to precedents from the Third Veil War. Reframe. The Empire retains sovereignty. Hale serves as attached strategist under your aegis, Empress. Seals flow without waiver breach. Alisa studied the draft, her inner lids narrowing. The human had unraveled a thread she'd overlooked amid court clamor, patterned it from invasion reports, treaty minutiae and cultural subtexts she deemed irrelevant. Creativity, not brute force. His mind wove disparate strands where her counsel plotted linearly. Arctos blinked, mandibles agape, as scribes cross-verified in frantic bursts. Whispers turned to stunned vents, impossible for an off-worlder to navigate so deftly. She paused, the rebuke coiling on her tongue, raising a clawed hand. "Withhold the seals pending review." The chamber stilled, her order a velvet blade, publicly cautious, privately a concession to necessity's pull. Law or survival, the fracture widened within her. Arctos's eyes gleamed triumph, but Hale's subtle nod anchored her. Duty demanded this gamble. In the antechamber's shadowed recess, away from prying vents, Balisa summoned her chief legal scribe Thalira, a stooped elder whose scales had dulled from decades in the archives. Protocol forbade off-worlders such access, granting it cracked formality's shell. Yet Hale's amendment hummed with potential, and the invasion's vanguard probes nipped at border stations. "Consult him," Balisa commanded Thalira, her voice low thunder. "Bet every syllable. If it holds, we proceed." Thalira's crests quivered, shock rippling through her frame, but she bowed, escorting Hale to the script vaults. Valisaw watched them vanish into the gloom, a private ache stirring. She dismissed humans as fragile curiosities, yet here one pierced her empire's legal marrow without demand. Strength, not subservience. Her own resilience frayed at the edges. Politics clawed inward. The vault doors hissed shut behind them. Hale leaned over the ancient plinths, Thalira's lumens casting jittery shadows. "See here," he said, tracing a glyph cluster. "The adjunct clause from the Veil precedents. Mirrors our needs exactly. No dilution, just leverage." Thalira's tail coiled tight, vents cycling disbelief. "Off-worlder, you parsed the subjunctives and cycle fractions. Our adepts take spans." Her claws hesitated, then annotated his draft, mutual rhythm building. Human adaptability bridged rote tradition. She found herself explaining archaic intents, learning his intuitive leaps in turn. Valisa turned away, crest settling. "Breaking protocol for this?" Necessity's leash tightened, but so did Alliance's promise. The grand ingress gong tolled, shattering the chamber's fragile poise. Prince Maldic strode in, unannounced, his royal pauldrons gleaming with air-fringe tassels, entourage of house guards fanning behind. Taller than Arctos, his scales a deeper crimson, he bowed with exaggerated sweep, precedence asserted in every flourish. "Empress Valisaw," Maldic intoned, voice resonant as war drums. "Word of this, human entanglement reaches the outer houses. As your kin by blood right, and suitor affirmed by the third succession right. I claim precedence.
Bind the throne to strength proven, not alien whims. Abandon this farce before it stains our line.
Arctos's faction surged with approval, tails stamping unison. Maldek's arrival weaponized tradition anew. Rival blood challenging her pact, leveraging the very interdiction to force rejection. Valaisa's mandibles locked, heat rising beneath scales. He'd timed it perfectly. Invasion shadows lengthening the stakes. Public eyes bored in. Rebuke now would splinter houses. Concession doomed the alliance. Hale emerged from the vaults then, Thalira at his side, clutching the vetted scroll. Amendment sealed viable. His gaze flicked to Maldek, reading the prince's posturing without flinch. But Balasar signaled restraint. This was her ground. Rise, prince, she commanded, voice ice over forge fire. Precedence is not seized by ingress but earned in council. Your suit holds merit by right, yet the Empire's peril demands practical measure. I schedule a contested hearing at dawn cycle. Let law and merit contend. The alliance proceeds under provisional seals until verdict. Maldek's crests flared, a ventral hiss betraying fury. You grant the human vault access? Protocol breeds extinction. Balasar cut in, strength unbowed. The Codex permits defense pacts. Necessity interprets. Attend the hearing, or withdraw claim. Arctos leaned to Maldek, murmurs conspiring, but the prince bowed curtly, retreating with poisoned grace. The chamber exhaled tension, factions recalibrating. Valisa felt Hale's quiet presence at her side, his draft now her shield, his poise a mirror to her resolve. Disdain fractured further. In his humble weave of loopholes, she saw not weakness but the edge her empire craved. Delira approached, scroll extended. It holds radiance. Flawless bridge. Her vents carried awe, eyes darting to Hale with newfound deference. An elder scribe humbled by off-world ingenuity. Valisa accepted it, claws steady. Implement the adjunct. Operations launch at dusk. Publicly regal, inwardly the struggle churned. Law's chains versus survival's fire. Maldek's shadow loomed, old edicts tightening the leash on her forced pact. Yet Hale's competence gleamed, a human thread in Jarosian weave, pulling toward unforeseen alliance. As council dispersed, Arctos cast a lingering glare, tail spur scraping stone. Valisa met it unflinching, then turned to Hale. Your patterns serve us. Speak freely now. What does the prince conceal? Hale's eyes met hers, patient respect. Unbroken. He's faction tied to Arctos likely, but the amendment buys time. Let's use it. She nodded, a rare ventral warmth stirring. Duty evolved. Partnership beckoned. The hearing would test them, but in this human's quiet forge of paths untrod, stability edged closer. Old laws and rival blood constricted, yet her strength held the line. The grand dais thrummed with the low hymn of the defense engine's activation chant, its crystalline core pulsing azure light across the assembled court in the vaulted atrium. Empress Valisa stood at the apex, her iridescent scales catching the glow, one clawed hand raised in ritual benediction as thousands of Zarisian eyes, nobles, delegates, and hovering drone swarms, fixed upon the machine. Then, with a shriek like fracturing bone, the core stuttered, flames licking its vents as shielding fields collapsed in a cascade of sparks. Shouts erupted from the tiered galleries. Sabotage! Bellowed Chief Minister Arctos from his council perch, his frilled crest flaring crimson with outrage. The engines profane our rights. Suspend the alliance talks at once. Investigate every shadow. Valisa's mandibles clicked sharply, silencing the nearest aides, but the damage rippled outward. Holographic readouts flickered to red across the atrium, emergency klaxons wailing as the public demonstration, meant to showcase Imperium resilience before the treaty signing, teetered on catastrophe. Her gaze snapped to the human envoy, Rowan Hale, positioned deferentially at the dais' edge amid the human delegation's cordon. He had been silent through the prelude, as protocol demanded, his plain uniform a stark contrast to the jeweled regalia around him. Now, as Zarisian technicians scrambled with ritual probes and incantatory data slates, Rowan stepped forward unbidden, his movements precise, unhurried. My Empress, Arctos pressed, gliding closer on his suspensor platform. Voice a venomous hiss over the comms. This is no coincidence. Human presence invites such frailty. Recall the envoys until purity is restored. Valisa's ventral plates tightened, a flicker of calculation beneath her regal poise. Public failure here could fracture the fragile post-hearing momentum. embolden the traditionalists, and cede ground to the border incursions. She inclined her head fractionally toward Rowan, voice projecting with imperial clarity. Envoy Hale, the Corps awaits your observation. He nodded once, eyes already scanning the engine's exposed innards, a labyrinth of plasma conduits and quantum lattices that even her elite artificers approached with veneration. Without a word, Rowan knelt, shrugging off his formal jacket to reveal a utilitarian harness beneath, its pouches bristling with tools alien to Zeresian design, a compact multi-tester, filament spools, and what appeared to be a crude thermal clamp forged from salvaged hull alloy. The court murmured as he bypassed the primary access panel, not with the sanctioned etheric pry, but by wedging a vibroknife into a seam and twisting with controlled force. Technicians hovered, crests twitching in affront. Primitive interference risks cascade failure, one protested. But Balisa silenced him with a glare, her compound eyes locked on the human. Rowan worked in a blur of multitasking grace, one hand rerouting a frayed conduit with filament splices pulled from his pouch, the other juggling diagnostic readings on a wristpad, while verbally cross-referencing failure logs with a hovering translator drone. Sweat beaded his brow, but his breathing remained steady, voice calm as he muttered adjustments to himself, patterns emerging from chaos that her people mapped only through exhaustive right simulations. Sparks flew. The core groaned. Then, with a resonant hum, azure light surged back, field snapping into full cohesion. The klaxons fell silent. The atrium held its breath. Arctos's platform jerked to a halt. Luck, he snarled, though his vents pulsed with unbidden heat. A fluke alignment. The engines demand consecration, not barbarism. Balisa felt a subtle shift in her own core rhythm, the repair's elegance defying rote probability. Luck? Perhaps. Yet the human had connected a tertiary feedback loop to the auxiliary vents, an improvisation her archives lacked precedent for, achieved in minutes where artificers would labor days. She kept her posture unyielding, mandibles neutral. The demonstration proceeds. Envoy Hale's intervention suffices for now. Chief Minister, your investigation may commence post-right. As the hymn resumed to polite applause masking deeper unease, Balisa retreated to her shadowed alcove, flanked by silent guards. Her mind whirred through risk matrices. The engine's failure bore hallmarks of microsabotage, trace etheric residue suggesting internal dissent. Arctos's faction grew bolder, but this human, his fix bought time, altered variables. She summoned her protocol aide via Neuralink. Commission contingency measures for all defense arrays. Assign Envoy Hale to draft the primary schemas. His methods merit integration. The aide's confirmation chimed, but Balisa's focus sharpened as a sharp crack echoed from the lower galleries, a projectile discharge illicit in the sacred space. Chaos bloomed anew. A minor minister, Delegate Vexar of the Outer Reaches, crumpled mid-stride, his carapace splintered by a needle dart from the shadowed upper tiers. Screams pierced the air. Security swarms deployed in glittering arcs pinning a cloaked assailant against a pillar. Assassin! Guards swarmed. But Vexar's vents rasped wetly. He lived, barely, his aide applying field sealant amid the press. Balisa's claws extended instinctively, her voice booming through amplifiers. Secure the atrium! Full spectrum on that assailant. Probe for accomplices. Her gaze swept to Arctos, who feigned shock atop his platform, though his frills betrayed microtremors of calculation. This was no lone zealot. The dart's toxin matched border insurgent strains, coordinated to exploit the engine's collapse. Destabilization, aimed at the treaty's heart. Arctos descended, counselors trailing like opportunistic remora. Empress, this violence underscores peril. Isolate the humans. Their presence provokes such shadows. Suspend all delegate access until the council clears. Objection overruled. Balisa cut in, her tone broking no fracture. Protocol cracked here, necessity demanding it. Her legitimacy hinged on stability, not Arctos's legal webs. Envoy Hale joined security briefings forthwith. His repair proved utility. His insight may trace this web. The chief minister's crest flattened, eyes narrowing to slits, but he bowed with stiff formality. As your radiance decrees. Tradition bends, for now. Balisa watched Rowan approach through the dispersing crowds, his jacket reclaimed but sleeves rolled. Conferring quietly with his delegation's medic who stabilized Vexar alongside Zeresian healers, the human's posture remained deferential, no triumph, merely readiness. Yet in that quiet competence, doubt seated in her calculations. Luck, or pattern unseen? The court presumed fragility in this soft-skinned envoy, a ceremonial relic. But as he met her gaze across the atrium, nodding acknowledgement, Valisa felt the first ventral stirrings of reassessment. This quick fix whispered otherwise, a proof etched in azure light and silenced alarms, hinting the human might forge paths her Imperium had overlooked. Partnership's edge sharpened. Survival demanded she wield it. Valisa's ventral scales prickled as the chamber doors sealed behind her, the atrium's murmurs fading to a hush. She turned from the viewport, her primary advisor's data slate thrust forward like a blade. Empress, the traces confirm it. Funds routed through shadow accounts, communications encrypted in Vorath protocols. Anti-human agitators in the outer houses are not isolated. They bear the mark of external coin. Her gaze sharpened, mandibles clicking once in restrained fury. The Vorath Dominion, neighbors who had long coveted her border worlds, dared sponsor sedition within her own court. This was no mere factional grumble. It was invasion by proxy, igniting a diplomatic blaze that could consume the treaty with these humans before ink dried. Valisa snatched the slate, her claws tapping through holographic ledgers that bloomed like venomous blooms. Irregular transfers masked as trade tariffs, bursts of subspace chatter aligning with rally dates. Crisis coiled tight. Public accusation would fracture alliances, yet silence invited rot. Summon the human, she commanded, voice a silken whip. Protocol be damned. This Rowan Hale had just proven his delegation's value in the healer's wing. If patterns hid here, perhaps his eyes saw what hers glossed. Rowan entered minutes later, his steps measured, jacket now buttoned, but eyes alert, carrying a compact analyzer from his team's kit. No bow deeper than courtesy demanded. He simply inclined his head, awaiting her lead. Valisa gestured him to the central holotable where she projected the raw data streams. Endless cascades of transactions, frequencies, timestamps. Your incident with Vexar buys you this moment. Envoy Hale, decipher if you can. My analysts see discord. I suspect design. He nodded once, no protest at the trial by data, and plugged his device into the interface. His fingers danced across dual pads, one eye on the Zerisian feeds, the other pulling cross-referenced human algorithms. Valisa watched, her second heart pulsing curiosity. Humans fatigued after such scrutiny. Hers had flagged after hours, yet Rowan multitasked seamlessly, annotating anomalies while murmuring queries to her advisor on Vorath trade vectors, adapting their metric scales on the fly, as if their angular script were mere child play. Minutes stretched, then patterns ignited. Here, he said, voice even, isolating a thread. Shell companies in the Vale Nebula, but the routing echoes Vorath military disbursements. Same cadence as their fleet resupplies during the last border skirmish. Timestamps cluster pre-rally, with cutoffs matching council recesses. Actionable. Trace the next pulse to Outpost K7. It's their relay hub. Valisa's crests flared involuntarily, a rare ventral thrill she masked with a slow nod. Impossible. Her cryptographers had chased ghosts for cycles. This soft-skinned outsider connected dots across domains her finest minds approached in silos. Proof. He spun the hollow. Layering comms bursts over fun flows. Overlaps glowed like battle stars. Predictive. They'll move again in 3 cycles, unless interdict. Pragmatism overrode tradition's roar in her mind. A public purge would rally the guilty to Arctos's banner, splintering the council. No. Containment first. Authorize covert inquiry, she decreed to her advisor. Shadow teams to K7. No ripples to the houses. Her gaze held Rowan's. You have forged the path, human. Walk it with us. The strategy vault admitted only her inner circle, 3 loyal generals, the advisor. And now, no outsider had breached these obsidian walls where emperors plotted wars and purges. Valisa claimed the apex seat, her form casting long shadows over the table's pulsing maps. Deliberations began. Envoy Hale contributes. He took position without flourish, already sketching intercept vectors on a side panel. They plunged in. Deployment grids for the inquiry teams. Risk matrices for exposure. Valisa noted his inputs, resilient contingencies for human-alien joint ops, factoring Zarasian endurance with what he called improvised relays. Her generals bristled at first, mandibles grinding, but as simulations ran clean, flawless takedowns without alerting Vorath sensors, nods replaced scowls, One general, crest low, muttered, "He anticipates our blind arcs as if born to them." Rowan's humility shone through. He deferred to their terrain knowledge, praising a general's flanking maneuver as elegant, like your historical phalanxes. Laughter cracked the tension, a shared spark across chitin and skin. Valisa felt propriety's shell fracture further. This was no ceremonial pawn, but a partner unveiling strengths her Imperium had dismissed as myth. Dawn crested the spires when they adjourned. Plans sealed. Valisa dismissed them with quiet pride. Containment woven tight. Vorath's blade dulled unseen. But Arctos struck at midday council. The vast hall thrummed with houses arrayed in tiered balconies, banners snapping under recirculators. Valisa ascended the dais, her form regal amid the murmurs, when Arctos rose from his block, data crystal raised like an accusation. "Empress, whispers of treason abound," he intoned, voice booming through amplifiers. The crystal bloomed. Partial inquiry manifests. K7 vectors, Rowan's overlaid annotations, leaked. Twisted to scream espionage.
The human plants seeds in our vaults.
His patterns mask infiltration. Tradition demands his recall, lest we invite Dominion spies under Alliance guise. Gasps cascaded, anti-human factions surged to their feet, crests high in outrage. Arctos's eyes gleamed, his gambit to erode her, rally the purists, paint Rowan as poison. Valisa's claws dug into her throne's arms. Political capital teetering, rebuke him now, and factions hardened, yield, and the inquiry crumbled. Vorath laughed. She rose, voice thunder without shout. "Chief Minister, your leak betrays more than it accuses." Murmurs peaked. She silenced them with a gesture, projecting the full, untainted holos. Rowan's decryptions vindicated beside Arctos's mangled scraps. "This espionage is salvation. Vorath funds your agitators, Arctos. The inquiry proceeds under my seal. Envoy Hale's mandate stands, protected by Imperial decree." The hall fractured, Arctos's allies hissing retreat, neutrals shifting as proofs sank in. Her generals in the tiers nodded fierce approval, even some outer houses lowered crests in reassessment. Arctos sank back, mandibles clenched, his ploy blunted but eyes promising reprisal. Valisa had gambled her prestige, shielding the human at cost. Yet in their exchanged glance across the chamber, Rowan offered only a subtle nod of thanks. No gloating. As council dispersed, she caught his approach amid the throng, her ventral stirrings now a steady hum. Patterns had emerged. Secrecy shielded them thus far, but Dissent's blade honed sharper, and survival hinged on wielding this unlikely edge together. Valisa's gaze locked on Rowan as he wove through the dispersing counselors, his human stride unhurried yet precise amid the rustle of iridescent robes. "Empress," he said softly, inclining his head just enough to honor protocol without deference. "The procession route. I've noted irregularities in the perimeter scans. Permit me to shadow your vanguard." She hesitated, ventral ridges humming with the fresh edge of their shared secrets, but nodded once. Dissent brewed, visibility demanded strength. Granted, but discreetly. The Grand Avenue thrummed under the weight of the Imperial procession, crystal spires of the capital refracting midday light into blinding shards that danced across armored flanks and fluttering banners. Valisea rode at the column's heart atop her throne mount, a towering zither beast whose scales gleamed like forged obsidian, its gait a rhythmic thunder muffled by the cheering throng. Flanking her were the royal custodians, their chitinous forms rigid in ceremonial plate, vibrolances humming faintly. Behind trailed the lesser heirs, cocooned in hover palanquins, and ahead prowled the vanguard scanners, their sensor arrays sweeping for threats. Rowan had slipped into position among the outer honor guard, his unadorned human tunic blending oddly with the Zerisian splendor. Valisa's compound eyes flicked toward him intermittently, tracking his subtle adjustments, a hand brushing his belt, eyes scanning rooftops, then ground-level stalls. Humans endured such scrutiny without fatigue. She had seen him labor through nights of simulations while her aides flagged, then it struck. A flicker in the crowd, too synchronized. 3 figures in pilgrim cloaks shifted as one, their ventral pouches bulging unnaturally beneath fabric. Valisa's instincts flared, her mount sensed it too, lowing a warning rumble. But the vanguard scanners beeped clear. Oblivious, Rowan moved like liquid resolve. He pivoted from his post, weaving through a gap in the custodians without breaking stride, his voice cutting through private comms. "Empress, abort center lane. Now." Assassins, pilgrim guys, neural talk sprayers. Her Scyther lurched left on command, Custodian surging to block the path as screams erupted. The lead assassin lunged, pouch splitting to reveal a sprayer nozzle hissing violet mist, lethal to Zorician neuroflesh in seconds. Rowan was there first, tackling the figure mid-leap, his body absorbing the spray's edge while pinning the arm. He jammed his elbow into the ventral joint, eliciting a chitin crack, then wrenched the device free, hurling it into the crowd's fringe where it sputtered harmlessly against stone. The second assassin fired wildly, missed grazing a custodian who crumpled. Convulsing, Rowan rolled, drawing a compact pulse knife from his sleeve, human issue, unpermitted, and slashed the sprayer line clean. He multitasked seamlessly, comms barking coordinates to seal alleys, free hand signaling her guards to evacuate heirs, eyes already locking the third target slinking toward her mount's underbelly. Valisa's heart ridges pulsed fury and awe. This human saw patterns her vaunted scanners missed. Crowd flows, pouch anomalies, even the assassin's synchronized blinks betraying rehearsed signals. He neutralized the cell in under 30 seconds, dragging the last one down with a knee to the thorax, binding limbs with his own belt as custodians swarmed. The procession halted in chaos, but Valisa raised her scepter high, voice booming through amplifiers. The Imperium endures. Secure the avenue. Execute no prisoners yet. Her eyes met Rowan's across the melee. He nodded, wiping toxin residue from his sleeve. Breath steady. No tremor of fatigue. Ordinary, he would call it. Impossible. In the shadowed halls of the inner citadel, hours later, Valisa paced the strategy vault, her robes shed for lighter vestments, ventral hum a low thrum of unresolved tension. Hollow displays flickered with procession feeds, autopsy scans confirming neural tox from Maldek's fringe faction. Arctos's shadow puppets, no doubt. Rowan stood at ease beside the central dais, sleeves rolled, annotating threat overlays with brisk strokes. Your intervention saved more than my life, she said, voice formal, yet edged with gravel. The heirs would have been collateral. Traditional security failed. He glanced up, expression neutral. Scanners prioritize energy signatures. Tox missed is low profile. Humans. We watch behaviors. Micro-gestures, group rhythms. It's fieldcraft. Adaptable. She signaled assent. Ridges flaring briefly. Then adapt it for us. Revise royal protocols. Integrate your tactics. Custodians will train under you. Starting dawn cycle. Rowan's brow lifted fractionally, but he inclined his head. With your oversight, Empress. Collaborative. Propriety cracked just enough. She felt the pull of it, this human's quiet competence weaving into her command web. The next procession dawned under fortified skies, drone swarms thickening the air. Valisa issued the order publicly from her balcony. Envoy Hale rides visible at my side. Let the Imperium witness unity. Gasps rippled through the assembled court below, relayed across capital feeds. Critics erupted immediately, Maldek's faction foremost, his mandibles clacking in outrage from the forechamber. Preposterous! Interdiction Clause 47 voids foreign riders in sacred processions. This human taints succession stability. Rowan mounted beside her on a lone Zither submount, smaller but steady, his posture impeccable. As they descended the avenue anew, crowds hushed then roared approval, but Valisa's comms buzzed with dissent. Arctos's voice, oily smooth. Empress, the Council files motions. Hale lacks standing. Illegal interloper per Treaty Annex 12. Strip his access or face tribunal. She leaned toward Rowan mid-ride, voice low amid the thunder of hooves. They sharpen their blades. Your patterns foresee this? Expected, he murmured, eyes scanning flanks. Maldek pushes interdiction to force air isolation. Weaken your flank, counter with precedent. Your prerogative overrides council on security matters. Her ridges warmed at his insight. He read their politics like battlefield terrain, connecting legal webs she navigated by rote. By eve cycle, the storm broke. Alarms wailed as Maldek's faction invoked emergency overrides, flooding chambers with proxies demanding Rowan's expulsion. Valisa strode into the Grand Tribunal, heirs already evacuated to secure vaults per her preemptive order. Rowan's advised redundancy. The chamber seethed. Arctos at the prosecutor's dais. Maldek flanked by traditionalists, their carapaces etched with faction glyphs. Empress, the interloper's presence invokes interdiction, succession teeters. Foreign influence disqualifies your line. Valisa mounted the sovereign plinth, scepter pulsing authority light. Tribunal. Note the record. Envoy Hale neutralized an assassination cell today, preserving the bloodline you claim to protect. Council directives yield to Imperial prerogative on security. Charter Edict 3.1. His role stands. Maldic chittered defiance. Proof of taint. He rides beside you, a visual blasphemy. Rowan stood silent at her summons edge, projecting calm amid the glares. Balisa felt the chamber's weight shift. Whispers spread of the feed vids, his feats rippling doubt through ranks. Arktos leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Motions filed. Strip standing, declare alliance void. Vote now. She slammed scepter to stone, shockwave silencing the hall. Emergency recess. My veto holds pending full audit. Heirs secured. Threats persist. Dissent noted, but loyalty demanded. As enforcers cleared the floor, Balisa caught Rowan's eye again. Patterns indeed. His warning had layered her defenses, turning ambush to bulwark. Maldic's faction retreated snarling, but fractures showed, a traditionalist aide murmuring approval of the human's precision. In the withdrawing shadows, her ventral stirrings steadied to resolve. Life, law, trust, forged visible now. Dissent honed sharper, yet this edge gleamed mutual, their survival entwined. Alarms pierced the command spire's vaulted hush, crimson pulses racing across holographic spheres that mapped the Empire's fringes. Empress Valisa's primary claws snapped to the nearest console, her ventral ridges flaring as the first report resolved. Coalition Vanguard breaches the outer drifts. 3 prongs, synchronized vectoring on the capital nexus. They cloak it as response to our unrest, Sovereign. The chamber's air thickened with the acrid tang of ionized fear from her aides, but Valisa's gaze locked on the encroaching sigils, a hydra of rival fleets from the neighboring tetrads. Zarathian swarms, Krell heavyweights, and Vexari skirmishers, united in opportunistic fury. She turned, her multifaceted eyes catching Rowan Hale where he stood amid the tactical lattice, his human frame unbowed amid the towering Zarisian officers. Envoy, she commanded, voice a silken blade. Your assessment. Now, protocol be damned, the spire thrummed with the gravity of invasion, and her court, Arktos chief among them, watched from the shadowed galleries, their mandibles clicking in barely veiled anticipation of her falter. Rowan stepped forward without hesitation, his fingers dancing across a auxiliary pad he'd jury-rigged into the lattice hours prior, adapting its crystalline interfaces to his touch with effortless fluency. Hollow projections bloomed under his hands, not the rigid fleet formations her Strategoi favored, but a web of pulsing nodes. Zorith lead with drone screens, Krell anchor the hammers, Vexari slip the knives. But here's the nexus. A central nexus ignited, threads spidering out to hidden outposts. Their coordination hinges on 6 relay stations. Cut those, and the prongs blind each other. We fuse your fleet's gravitic lances for precision strikes, with human feints, decoy swarms from our light craft to draw fire, then micro-jumps to flank. Your maneuvers hold the line. My patterns shatter the chain. Alisa's ventral stirrings quivered, not in doubt but the sharp thrill of revelation. This human, this off-worlder dismissed as treaty chaff, had unraveled the Coalition's veil in minutes, connecting signals across domains her own analysts chased by rote. Arktos leaned forward from his dais, his frilled crest flaring in outrage. Sovereign, such improvisation defies the codex of arrays. Ritual command dictates. Silence, Minister. Balisa cut him, her authority a thunderclap that stilled the chamber. She signaled her guard captains. Clear the secondary nexus. Envoy Hale assumes strategic core. Gasps rippled. Zarisian procedure exalted lineage hierarchies, not alien interlopers, but she strode to Rowan's side, placing him at the lattice's heart, her claw brushing his shoulder in a gesture that silenced further protest. Effectiveness over etched law. Survival demanded it. Rowan's eyes met hers briefly, a flicker of shared resolve, humble yet unyielding, and her ridges warmed with unbidden alliance. The court assembled in the grand strategium below, fleet admirals shimmering via projection, Arktos's faction glaring from gilded alcoves. Valicia mounted the throne dais, her form casting imperial shadow over the throng. The coalition strikes at our heart, veiled as justice for imagined frailties, she proclaimed, voice resonating through the crystal amplifiers. Yet we do not yield. I endorse Envoy Hale's stratagem in full. Imperial fleets commit, lance wings to the van, hammer claws to the flanks. Human vectors integrate as equals. Execute the fused strike. Parity is our blade. Murmurs erupted, Arctos rising with mandibles agape.
Empress, the law forbids off-species command parity without—
Law bends to sovereignty, she retorted, her gaze pinning him. Witness. Rowan, at her right, position of consort in ancient right, unfurled the plan anew, admirals nodding as gravitic sims confirmed the fusion. Xerasian might amplified by human cunning, decoys weaving chaos into rote precision, cheers built tentative then fervent. Even Arctos subsided, his crest dimming as projections showed simulated victory cascades. Then the transmission pierced the void, a coalition envoy, its form a grotesque amalgam of allied castes, broadcast across open channels. Imperium of Zaris, your unrest invites correction. Surrender the capital nexus. Expel the human contaminant, Rowan hail, and submit to Tetrad oversight. Refuse, and we glass your spires. The strategium froze, all eyes on Valisa. Arctos's frills flared triumphant. Here, the choice: capitulate, preserve tradition, or bind her fate to this outsider. Her ventral cord tightened, memories flashing of shadowed trusts forged. Rowan's quiet endurance through court barbs, his patterns now their shield. Expel him? Sever the edge that gleamed mutual? No. She was born to rule, yet true power. Ridiculous, she declared, amplifiers booming to every fleet node. Your terms are void. We counterstrike. Now. Orders flew, lance wings surged from the drifts, hammer claws coiling power. Rowan's voice wove through comms, calm multitasking, directing decoy launches while syncing jump vectors with Xerasian navigators, adapting to their crystalline syntax mid-crisis. Valisa watched from the core, her claws gripping the throne as the lattice bloomed with battle fire. The first relay fell in a gravitic blaze, human feints drawing Zorath drones into lancefire crosshairs. Krell hammers lumbered blind, Vexari knives fragmenting without command. Rowan pivoted seamlessly, spotting a shadow relay her Strategoi missed, rerouting a skirmish wing on the fly. Empress, ventral flank clear. Push the core. Admirals marveled openly. He endures the flux without fatigue, connects the unseen threads. Valisa's ridges thrummed with fierce optimism. This human's resilience. His uncomplaining vigil through endless sims, fused with her fleet's unyielding might. A Krell behemoth loomed, but Rowan fused a novel improvisation. Micrograv pulses from lightcraft to destabilize its shields, Sarisian lances piercing true, victory cascaded, coalition prongs shattered, flagships yielding in panicked bursts. As the last sigils winked out, the strategium erupted in loyal roars. Arctos approached the dais, crest low in concession. Sovereign, the codex must adapt. Valisa rose, drawing Rowan to her side before the court and fleet projections. It shall. By decree imperial, Rowan Hale stands as consort strategist, political partner in governance and defense. His parity is etched in our survival. Challenge it, at peril of law. Cheers thundered, factions bending. Even Arctos bowed, respect etching his features. In the withdrawing shadows of triumph, her ventral stirring steadied to profound resolve. She was born to rule and learned that true power lay in finding an equal.